Welcome to the Small Church Podcast, the podcast for church leaders who want to make a difference in their communities. We're your hosts, Tony Marr and Bruce Montgomery, and we're excited to be with you today. On this podcast, we'll be discussing the latest trends, strategies, and ideas for effective leadership in small-sized churches. So whether you're a pastor, a ministry leader, or a volunteer, this podcast is for you. Each week, we'll bring you interviews with experienced church leaders who have valuable insights to share. We'll also explore topics like team building, community outreach, spiritual growth, and much more. So if you're looking for practical advice and inspiration to help you lead your church with excellence, you've come to the right place. The Small Church Podcast is brought to you by Higher Ministries. Higher Ministries is an organization that exists to help Christian leaders in the churches they serve through coaching and consulting, all for little or no cost. For more information on Higher Ministries or to find out more about the Small Church Podcast, please visit higherministries.com. Thanks for tuning into this week's edition of the Small Church Podcast. Welcome back to the Small Church Podcast. I'm your host, Tony Marr, along with my co-host, Robert Kell. Bruce is still not with us again this week. This guy, we just cannot get him to come and participate. He's enjoying retirement way too much.
Making me look forward to it.
Yeah, I know. Me too. Fortunately, that's quite a ways off.
It's a ways off for us.
So, Robert, last week we had Justin Nava from Nava Church Marketing on with us. We started a great conversation with him that was going so well that we decided it was going to run over into a second week. What were some of your takeaways from the initial conversation with Justin?
Yeah, he had so many great thoughts just about how a website functions, how we should be kind of leaning in, just about how we should be a church, how we should, be reaching persons near our location, that the church is the website and the church should be ministering to people, not just a space that people can come and see the sermon, see what the children's ministry is doing and things like that. But our website should be a space to love and care for and minister to people on that homepage and have a real direct point. And so I thought all that was just unbelievable stuff. I'm glancing at my notes, and he just a lot of great information.
He had some really great information that I think is practical for churches of all sizes, not just small churches, but especially for smaller churches, and some things that maybe they haven't thought through. And so in part two this week, we're going to pick up the conversation with Justin. We're going to kind of switch pages a little bit and go to more of his process that he will take a church leader through, a church through, if they decide to work with him and allow him to work with their church, his team to work with their church. And so if you didn't listen to the first part, you definitely want to go back and listen to last week's episode of the Small Church Podcast before you listen to this week's episode. And we're excited to bring you part two of our conversation with Justin Nava from Nava Church Marketing. And Justin, this has been a great conversation so far. I would love to kind of switch pages a little bit. And for someone listening to the show that says, all right, so we hear what Justin has said, we're on board. What does it look like to partner with you, to work with you, to take their small church and go through your program? You have the definitive church marketing method. Talk us through that a little bit. What does that look like from a church first reaching out to you, sending you an email or getting on your website through the end of that process?
Sure. So the definitive church marketing method, it's our proven system now. We've helped churches across the U.S. triple their guests within 90 days. So again, it doesn't work for a dying church because you've got to have actual people that at least one person a month coming to your church, right? Because you're doing something. Your church is at least assisting. But it is a proven process, and we move people through that process in a very definite way. So number one is you have to kind of know that you're coachable, okay? And you have to know that your church is willing to grow, okay? So church leaders will tell you, no matter how much you and your staff want to grow, if the church doesn't want to go with you, nothing you're going to do is going to work. It needs to start within their hearts, and you've got other things to work on. Church marketing is not going to fix that. Now, that said, if you do want to reach more people, if you want to become better known, if you feel like your church is the best kept secret, I want your church to be the best known. I want to live in a world again where, like now, everyone knows where the local Walmart is. They know where it is. They know when it's open, and they know what to expect when they go. I want to go back to the time when people know where their local church is, when it's open, and what to expect when they go. And if we just sit here in our little shell, and it's going to be real hard to get that done. Okay. So first step is that to understand that we treat this like a physician would treat your illness, not like a vitamin shop would treat your ailment. Okay. So a lot of folks are vitamins. They say, here, buy this. Hope it works. Call me in the morning. I got something else to sell you if it doesn't work. Okay. We take a very prescriptive approach to this. The first thing we do is we start with an introduction call. It takes about 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It's to learn about your church and just to make sure that we think we can help you. Okay. That's all it is. 10, 15 minutes, just a few questions. And then we just make sure that you're a good fit potentially. After that, we move into what we call a consultation. It is complimentary for churches. If you ask us to do it for your business, it's $500. But we do it complimentary for churches with the pastors. And that is us digging deeper into what you've done before, what you're trying right now, figuring out why that hasn't worked, and then looking at where your gaps are right now so we can look at how we can fill those in, again, using the definitive church marketing method. If you come to me and say, hey, I just want more videos for TikTok, that's not us, right? We are here to get more people in your church or connected with you to hear the gospel and grow the kingdom. We're not here to just give you pretty stuff. There are other people that can do that. That's not my heart. I want to grow the kingdom. I want to be your ministry partner in changing your community, increasing the righteous in your community, all right? So then we're going to go through and we're going to figure out, make sure that the definitive church marketing method, that's our prescription, is a good fit for you, that it would answer the gaps that you have, that we believe that it would bring more people to your church, it would raise awareness, and it would help you with the mission of your church. It would help you make disciples, you make disciples. It would help you glorify God and turn your city into a God-fearing city. It would help you with that mission. And then if it makes sense then and there, we do a proposal, you get approval from your finance committee. Again, we're churches, we work with churches, so we know what that's like. We give you everything you need to get approval. We also do nighttime meetings and weekend meetings because we work with a lot of bivocational pastors. We're flexible in that. And then once you're ready to go, we hit the ground running and we actually start the process.
That's great. And so starting the process, what could kind of talk us through what someone could expect? How long is that process going to last? What are we hoping to accomplish in that process? What is required of the church? I know that a lot of times churches are just looking for that pill that they can take, or they're looking for someone to come in and do all the work for them, and they're happy to write a check, but they don't want to actually do anything themselves. What's required of the church that's going to work with you? What are your expectations of them and their leadership?
So we want to work with the churches that don't want to do anything themselves, right? In fact, that's one of the qualifications is you don't want to do this yourself, okay? Because we're going to do it all for you. Eventually, I'd like to have a coaching program, course work, and all that stuff, teaching our method. We're just not there yet. I'm just focused on helping those pastors that want to be in front of people and not behind a computer screen. So we're doing everything for you. So really, your commitment is about an hour a week for the first couple of weeks because we got to onboard you and build your messaging. We're going to dig into we do what's called a deep dive DNA calls. We dig into your church to make sure we can get the correct message for the people you're equipped to serve. And then from there, it goes down to about 15 minutes a week. And that's just basically us building everything. And then those 15 minutes are meeting with you to get approvals or to talk about what needs to be adjusted. Again, you're not telling us so much what to do, but you're telling us, yeah, this accurately represents us. And then we build out the rest of it. And then we also train you and your team on how to use it. So we create your messaging. We create a lot of stuff for you as far as like what to listen for, how you can present the church in a way that's understandable, relatable, and actionable. And we actually give that to your team and show you how to use that to put it into practice. So that way you can actually use this stuff. We start with your messaging because if you don't have good messaging, but you have pretty designs, you're just a pastor on stage that's got the 3-piece suit, silk, pastel, pocket square, and you didn't open your Bible one time. The message is what's very important. So we start with the message. No one ever goes to a church because of a pretty website. They go to a church because the website communicates something that they want or feel that they need. And the design supports that. So we always start with the messaging. And then we move into the branding. How do we visually represent that message? And then we do we call it be intentional. We build out a process to how do we get people, once they come to our website or come to wherever they are online, How do we capture their attention and get them to take a next step? Or if they're not ready to take that next step we build out a secondary next step. And usually that's a resource. It's a devotional prayer guide. We can write it, or the pastor can give us something and we turn it into a resource, and it becomes an online guest gift to where someone visits us online. We can say, hey, look, we want you to come on Sunday. We want you to come to small groups, whatever that first step is. We want that. But if you're not ready, maybe there's something else that we can help you with. A parenting guide, prayer guide, devotional, why am I here, write up. Something that they say, yeah, I want that. Here's my email address, send it to me. And now we've started a dialogue. We can deliver that resource. We can ask for feedback on that resource. We can ask what they think about that resource. We can share Bible scripture and testimony about something related to that resource. Again, to develop a relationship that gets people to reply to that email and say, you know what, Pastor, you're right. I do need something more. This helped me. There's something else. And then you can make that invite again, right? So that's the first part, is all about the messaging. We call it influence inception. It's just a sexy marketing term for this is how we're going to get people to pay attention to you. And then from there, we move on to, that's the first phase. There's 2 more phases, but stop me if I'm taking up too much time.
No, not at all. It's great.
So from there, now that we've got your foundation, right, essentially like the seminary of your marketing strategy, then we move on to what we call peak positioning, okay? This is making sure that your church shows up when people are searching for a church, okay? This is where a lot of churches stop. This is where we just get started, okay? We make sure your website is engaging. We make sure it follows all the best practices. It's going to support your message and accurately represent your church. There's a lot of churches we talk to, they say, our website just doesn't look like us. All right, well, we're going to make a website that accurately represents you. It's your online headquarters. And then we move into what we call Be Found. Everything is a B. We move into Be Found. That's where we get your website seen by more people. We do this through local search optimization. We talked about that earlier. Not only in the search results, but also in the local results. When you go to Google and you search for church near me or notary near me or not electrocutioner, what do you call it? Electrician near me, right? You're going to get what's called places, right? 44% of people are going to stop searching in those 3 places that show up at the top. It shows up before even Yelp does, okay? And you got to be there. And so we focus on getting you in that top spot so you can get even more people seeing your church and seeing what how Jesus can support them through your church. And then we do a process we call Be Represented. This is where we collect testimonials from your church and encourage them to leave them as 5-star reviews. It encourages Google to show your church to more people because people are reviewing it well. And then also, without relying on your website or social media, you are able, right there in Google search, never going to your website, never clicking on your social media profile, right there in Google where they are, they can see stories of God's work in your church within the context of those reviews. So all that together gets you on Google. And not only that, you're showing up on Google twice. You're showing up in that local search, and you're showing up down below in the what we call the organic search. That's the first page listings. But that's not good enough, okay? We got to do what everyone else isn't doing to get people to pay attention to your church so they can hear the gospel, okay? And from there, we move on to momentum multiplier. That's the last phase. This is where we go to people that aren't searching for churches, but still need Jesus, right? Not everyone. So we get you listed in a 3rd time in Google using the Google Ad Grant. If you're a 501c3, you get free advertising money from Google, up to $10,000 a month. And it's not just for your church. It can be for classes you're running, ministries you have, events you have, resources you have. If you got a prayer guide or a prayer request, something like that. Prayer request doesn't really work on Google, but we can do that. They give you free advertising money. All you have to do is just know how to spend it. So we do that for you. So now you're listed in the top ad spot on Google. Didn't cost you anything. Then you're listed in the local search results. And you're listed in the Google organic searches. Your church is there 3 times, okay? If someone's looking for a church and they scroll down to the bottom and they see you 3 times, they're going to click on you, let's be honest. Then we go into Facebook ads. We call that Be Seen. And this is where we go out not to just promote your events, because again, if you just promote events and programs, all you're going to be known for is your events and programs.
Right.
And you're going to be a programmatic church to your community. So we don't want to show that we love people just when we have something for them to go to. We want to show that Jesus loves them every day. So we actually create what we call evergreen campaigns, meaning they just run all the time. And we reach out to new movers. We reach out to, if you want, recently divorced, reach out to low income people, whatever the demographic is that your church can serve. We reach out to those people on Facebook where they already are with a message that uniquely resonates with them. Okay. Hey, you're new to the area. What question? Can we point you to a good mechanic, a good restaurant? Can we pray for you? Can we help you move, unload the truck? Whatever that is. Like we can be very intentional with new movers. People that are recently divorced or recently going into a complicated relationship. Hey, life is changing and it moves faster than we're comfortable with. And if you build your life on any of these things, we understand it feels like everything's crumbling, and we often wonder what it means to be on this earth. There is something more. There is a life after this, and we want to pray for you, right? It's being very intentional to reaching a specific kind of person with a specific message that your church can reach into them. And this is where, again, relationships start, because we're not asking people to just go look at information. We're asking them to be a part of a relationship. And again, discipleship, I believe, happens best in the context of relationships. That's what all this is about, is making it easy for that relationship to spark. And the last step we call be everywhere. Typical public relations. We work to get you on local media, local podcasts, local publications, local blogs, local markets. If there's any seminars going that you can speak to, hey, we'll get you there too on stage. It's about getting you in front of people that don't even know that they don't know you. And maybe they don't even know the real definition of Jesus. We put you in front of them using platforms they're already paying attention to so they can hear about you, trust you. So again, when someone at your church makes that invite, they've already heard of you.
That's great.
And that's an entire system. We can build it out in as fast as 90 days, but you got to pay for it all at once. It's a very hard pill to swallow. Yeah. So usually we do about one step a month. We spend the first month on your messaging, then visually representing it, then building that compelling, intentional message online. And then it's about 9 months to do the whole program. And then once you see it run for those last 3 months, because it is an annual commitment, that's when you really see, like, we've got 10 times more people. Like, we got to figure out a second service here. And that's kind of our goal, is we want to get to that point where it's like, you got to make a decision. Are you going to start another church, or are you going to start another service, or what's going to happen next? That's what we want to see.
And do you help them with all of that, all those questions and working through that?
I can consult. In fact, I'm going through church answers certification right now, so I can better answer those questions. A lot of times in our onboarding, like I said, that deep dive DNA, we've already addressed some of those questions. So we know this church, they're 120. Once they get to 180, they're at 80% capacity. We know they're going to move to a second service because we've already talked about that. If they don't know what's going to happen, those conversations need to start when we start, because you need to have a plan when you get to that point, not get to that point and then try to figure out what's happening. And then you have an uncomfortable worship experience for a few months because you didn't have a plan already. So we try to bring up those questions, and I can consult as best as I can, but every church is unique. I don't have a single answer. I want to become that kind of person, which is, again, why I'm continuing my education in that aspect. But to me, there is no wrong answer. In fact, one unique answer we have, there's a tiny church, 30 people we're running through our program. And the pastor said, if we ever get to 50 people, we've got a problem, because they are a sending church. He says, he said to me, Paul called Timothy his soldier. If that makes the church the army of God, our congregation is going to be the Navy SEALs. Meaning, if they ever get beyond 35, 40 people, they're going to go start a new church, or they're going to send them to plant somewhere. That's his vision. That's his goal. And again, that comes up on one of our first 2 calls. So we kind of already know what to expect there, because that's also going to kind of determine what we do a year from now as far as the work we do. So we bring up those questions, but again, it's really for you and your leadership, and of course God, to kind of direct you in your vision.
Hey, Justin, you just mentioned Facebook there kind of at the end of that, and it's really the first time social media has kind of come up in what's been a great conversation, and I've just been typing notes faster than I could talk. So, there's people who now are kind of saying, like, websites maybe aren't as important because everybody's just on social media, and I don't need a website. How would you speak to that, to small churches, or somebody's going, man, just get you a Facebook and Instagram page, throw a couple TikTok reels out there, and, get on, I guess it's X now. I'm trying to keep up, but it's, those things of just being in that social space. gives them more leverage than having a website. Websites are expensive. They're a lot of work. All the things you've just said, it's just not worth the ROI. It's not worth the investment to do that. What's your kind of thoughts there, and how do you speak into that with maybe some people who feel that way?
Yeah. So my first question is, do you want to be a church that's reaching out to people in your community, or do you want to be a church for your circle and your circle's circle? Because if all you do is post on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you're only communicating to the people that follow you and maybe the people like their friends or their followers. Okay. You have a very limited circle. Unless you pay for advertising, you're only going to reach the same 70 to 200 people every week, which is why I talk to so many churches and I say, what are you doing right now? They say, we just post to Facebook. And I say, how that's going. It's the same 3 people that like it, and Miss Rhonda shares it every week, but it only gets seen by 7 more people. Okay. Now, if you pay to play, that's a little bit different. That's why I never talked about posting to Facebook or Instagram, because that's something that's best done in the context of like inside the church, someone in the church. We just run the advertisements because we're a marketing agency. We're not here to write your bulletin or do your Facebook posts or Instagram posts. We're here to get you in front of new people in the community because we want to grow the kingdom, right? That stuff is better for like existing congregational support, equipping, and all that stuff. If you don't want a website, don't get a website. I'm not here to sell you a website, but I'll tell you this, it's going to be really hard to get people to trust you unless you give them an avenue to see what God's doing in your life. And if all you're doing is posting on Facebook, remember what you said, no one ever goes past the first page of Google to find something. No one's ever going to go past the first 5 posts of your Facebook profile, your Twitter profile, your Instagram profile. Okay. So go right now. If that's all you're doing, what do those 5 posts on Facebook look like? Event, sermon, scripture, event. That's most of what church Facebook profiles look at. So at this point, you say, well, we don't need a website. We've got Facebook. I hit my space bar. All your Facebook is doing is just showcasing how programmatic your church is. There's nothing there sharing the testimony of your church. And not only that, when I go to Google and I see a Facebook link, I'm going to skip that link because I don't want to go look at your page. I want to look at your website. And when I go to Facebook, I have to go dig up to find your about information. And when I go to your Facebook, my experience is going to be different depending on the day that I go. Is the first thing I'm going to see a story? Is the first thing I'm going to see a sermon? That's going to ask me for an hour-long commitment? When I go to Facebook, am I going to see last week's worship service when everything went off the rails? And you can't control what the first service I see is because you're relying on Facebook to show it to me. Not only that, you don't own Facebook. They say like having a website is like owning your house, and using Facebook is like renting your home because Facebook controls it and you don't have much control over it. That's not even right. You're couch surfing, right? You don't even rent a house. You're sleeping on someone else's couch because you're not paying Facebook anything. They control everything. That you are there at the pleasure of Facebook allowing you to be there. And that's a totally different podcast. But, you can only do so much if you just rely on social media. Now, the one exception to everything I just said is Instagram Reels and TikTok, because those are not follower dependent. They are interest dependent, meaning when I go on the For You page of TikTok or when I go to Instagram Reels, they're not going to just show me the people that I follow. They're going to show me content that matches with my interests. For me, it's nerdy dads who like to travel, right? Like that's what I see on TikTok. But also I have Christian content because it knows that I like Christian content that answers apologetic questions or shares inspiring stories, maybe some sermon clips. So maybe your church will show up if you're posting that kind of content, if it matches the interest of others. But again, you have to do it intentionally. Because if you're just posting sermon clips, TikTok is only, and Instagram Reels are only going to show that to people who are interested in sermon clips, which means what kind of results, best case, are you going to get? Transplants, church transplants. You're not reaching new people because you're not communicating things that are of interest to them. So it's really, really hard. I'm not saying it's impossible, but man, you're setting yourself up for a lot of obstacles if you just want to use other people's platforms to build your own. And even if you look at the top streamers, content creators on social media, there's always a link back to their website, because that's their online HQ. In the same way that we go out and do missions and have small groups, life groups, house groups, and we go out and serve in our community, we always return to our church home, because that's where we do our best equipping, fellowshipping, and worship, and exalting, and exhorting, and encouraging. It all comes back here, because you can only do so much out in the community. And God bless the church plants that meet in movie theaters and coffee houses and people's homes. But the goal is always to have a central location where the church can gather together and be a family gathered together. The same way, go out on social media, do missions there, do outreach there, but there always needs to be an online church home where people can come, learn more, be inspired, be equipped, see the gospel in a way that you control.
Yeah, and that's
a brief
great.
overview of that.
No, that's great. And that's really why I asked that, because I feel like there's a need for both. And when I'm saying, like, I'm hearing churches say that, this isn't like small churches who are struggling with a budget. I'm hearing churches of 400, 500, 600 people going, websites are just a lot of money. We'd rather invest that in a staff member or in this or in that. And they're pulling back from that because it feels like you've got such a wide reach inside of social. But what you're talking about, the intentionality of social media and the fact that you own so little, they control the algorithms, they control, like you said, you're just couch surfing. You're really not doing, you're not even renting. So no, that was great. Exactly what I was looking for in that answer. So thanks for spending that time there.
Yeah. And also, one of the first questions we ask to make sure that we're on the same page when we do the consulting is the goal of you right now to reach more people, to bring them in, to hear the gospel and grow the kingdom? Because if a church says, we don't need a website, we'd rather put that money towards another staff member, what staff member is that? Is that more internal support? Because we need that. But when you put $18,000 into new carpet for the sanctuary, but you're not willing to put $1,000 into some kind of marketing asset that's going to reach thousands, but instead you're spending 18 grand to make 70 people more comfortable, really shows where your priorities are. It shows that to your church, it shows that to your staff and leadership, and it shows it really to your community, because they don't even know you're not reaching out to them. So, again, it comes down to what are your priorities. And I'm not saying that if you invest in new carpet, you shouldn't keep up your carpet, you shouldn't keep up your house, like that stuff's important. But I think we all hurt a little bit when we look at our budget, and we say 65% is going towards staff, 20% is going towards the building, 10% goes to something else that's not mission work, and a nickel of every dollar given to the church is really going towards outreach, missions, and all that stuff. Like that, I think that hurts a lot of us, and we want to see that number change. It ain't going to change unless we tell it to change. So that's a decision that we've really got to make. And I guess, thankfully, I don't get too many calls in that situation, because I think by the time someone reaches out to me, they're in that mindset, and I don't have to have that discussion with them.
Justin, you said that you're a marketing firm, you're not a consultant. And I think that's a huge difference there. One of the things that we do a lot with our organization, Higher Ministries, is we are consultants that work with churches on helping them to be better stewards of their resources, and even beyond that, to reach their community and really discover who they are as a church. That's one of the big things we do. We have a program that's a year-long program called the Church Advancement Program that we walk alongside the church for an entire year to really work through this process of discovering exactly who you are, what your unique strengths are of your church, and how you can best utilize that to expand the kingdom and reach your community. When you're doing your program with them, it's definitely going to bring people into the church. If they do what you tell them to do, they go through your process, they're going to get new people to come into their church. Over the course of that 9-month program with you, and if they extend it, I'm not sure what the options are to extend it beyond that 9-month program, but after they've done their work with you, you've gotten new people into their church. I think that your website says that we will increase by, get you 30% more visitors. I don't remember exactly what the number is right now. Robert and I were talking about it before we got on the air with you.
Triple first-time guests.
Triple first-time
14 days, or I think he said 9 months earlier in the thing. So, yeah,
Yeah, so you triple first time guests, you're getting them in the door. How much, and again, understanding you're not a consultant, how much of your process is saying, okay, we've got them in your door, but now it's up to you to keep them there?
Yeah. When I said I wasn't a consultant, like I don't have a consulting program. If you want to consult for an hour, we can talk, right? Because there is things that, of course, I've worked at churches across the U.S. I've seen what works, and I can consult on that. What I mean when I'm not a consultant is I don't have a course you can buy and I'll walk alongside you with this because again, my passion is to get you in front of people, not put you behind a computer screen. And so if I teach you how to do a website, you still got to sit behind a website and do it, right? I think that's a waste of pastor's time. So I'd rather our people just do it for you. Now that said, yes, there needs to be some kind of assimilation process. That's one of our qualifications to jump on the program is you have to have at least a 1, 2, 3 step. They come to the door, we give them a gift, and then maybe we send them a letter. Now our process enhances that. Okay, when they come in the door, what's the message they're greeted with? When they get that gift, what's in that gift, right? Because our messaging can go in that gift. There's a definite next step that they can take. And then after they get that gift, after you get the Connect card, the same follow-up process we use for the website, we can use for first-time guests. So the client goes in there Sunday afternoon. This is the guest information we have. Now our system automatically sends out, Pastor, give them a call right now. Okay, now that you call them tonight, we'll send them a thank you text. Tomorrow, we'll send them a, how can we pray for you this week? Tuesday, we'll send them a testimonial. Wednesday, we'll ask them again, how can we pray for you if they didn't ask already? Like there's a whole process that we use to, again, enhance what the church is doing because I don't want to just sell a puzzle piece. I want to come alongside what they're trying to build and make it easier for them. So if they have zero assimilation process, the chances are we're just not going to work with them because one of the worst things that we can do is bring people to a church that are not prepared to handle them. Now that said, I think that's happened one time in the last 2 years that someone was like, I don't know what we do with first-time guests. Most churches have at least an idea of what they want to do. And usually when they start seeing new guests, even more frequent, they're like, all right, we got to do this right now. And it's funny, you can sit here and spin your wheels for 3 months, 6 months, a year trying to figure out what to do for new guests. But the moment you start seeing that number increase, you get it fixed in a week. So that's something that I love working with and I can consult with. In fact, one of my favorite books, it's down here on the floor because I just used it yesterday and I threw it on the floor, is Fusion by Nelson Searcy. It's what I go to a lot for bridging that gap. But again, part of our messaging that we do at the very beginning of our working together is what's the first step someone's going to take when they come see you? And then what's the second step you want them to take? And we build out a nurturing process with you to make it easy for them to take that second step. And then what's the third step? Usually that's surrendering to Christ, joining the family, getting baptized, whatever that is. So there's an obvious nurturing path that they can take. And, very rarely do we have to say, this is wrong, don't do that. It's usually, you're on the right track, and here's how you get that other 80% that you're missing.
Yeah, Nelson's systems are great. I love his stuff. If people aren't using those, I think they're missing out on a real opportunity to help with the things you're talking about right there. So,
yeah.
So just so we only have a few minutes left here, and I want to spend some time to really talk about how our listeners can connect with you, how they can reach out to you. If they wanted to find out more, what's the best way to go about that?
So I would recommend, since you're listening to this podcast, I want to make it real easy for you. And whatever you're listening to this right now, just search the best known church show in your favorite podcast app. You can also find us on YouTube, Spotify, and all that stuff. But find us there, subscribe there. That's where I walk through my process. I'm walking through it right now again for the second time. That's pretty much all the show is I'm just sharing this process, the things we've learned, what's working for other churches, case studies, the steps we take. In fact, 2 days ago, the show, we talked about the Google grant. I actually walked through how to apply for it, how to qualify for it, some common pitfalls that people fall into when they try to do it themselves. So go to the best known church show. It's called that because I want you to go from unknown to best known. I don't want you to be the best known church. I want you to be the best known organization in your community. Again, people should know about the local church like they know about local Walmart. And I'm not going to choose a side here, but everyone in Houston knows about Lakewood. Everyone in Dallas knows about Potter's House. Everyone in California knows about Saddleback. Those are the big churches, and should be exceptions to the rule. More people in your 2-mile, 5-mile, 10-mile radius, whatever you want to define, should know about you, not the church downtown that is always on the news. They should know about you and what you're doing for them and the invitation that's open for them and what they can do to connect with you and find Jesus through you, not through television Sunday mornings at 8:00, right? So that's what the show is all about. It's helping you reach more people by becoming better known, to make that invite easier. The best known church show, whatever app you like to use, find it there.
Great. And if someone has listened to this and they've said, all right, I'm on board, I want to start this process, is the website the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can go to navachurchmarketing.com. You'll see we practice what we preach. The only thing you can do on the homepage is schedule a call. There's one secondary action to download our website framework towards the bottom, but schedule a call, click that button, pick a time on my calendar, and we'll do that 10, 15-minute call just to see if we can help your church. And again, even if you're not sure, like, hey, I don't know if this is for me, we can go through that consultation. Worst case, absolute worst case, you get a customized roadmap of our definitive church marketing method, customized for you, that you can go out and independently do on your own. You'll have that clarity of next steps to take, whether or not you do it with us or not.
And I'm going to ask the question, Justin, that I'm sure all of our listeners are wondering. I told you earlier in our conversation that I just did a thing for my rental properties business and had 3 phone calls with them, 3 Zoom meetings with them before we ever got to them dropping the hammer on me of what this process was going to cost me. How far into the process is that going to be discussed? Because I know that a lot of our listeners are with churches that have very limited budgets, and even though the pastor may strongly value what you guys are offering and what you guys are going to bring to them, taking that to their board, their elders, their financial committee, and getting them to have the same appreciation and understanding of the value could be difficult. And so within that first 15-minute conversation, is that going to be discussed? Is that something that is going to be drug out? When are they going to find out what's our investment on this going to be?
Yeah, we're not going to talk. I'm not going to sell you anything. I'm not going to ask for your credit card. We're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about your church, your vision, your mission, what you want to see happen. Then we're going to go through the program. If and only if the program makes sense, then we go through all the businessy stuff. I put on my sales hat and we can actually talk that. My goal, the first call, is just to see if we can help you. The second call, the consultation, is just to make sure that this program can fit with you and you're comfortable with the program. There's no point in talking about the business stuff if we can't even help you. That's wasted bandwidth. That's like wishing I could do something and then you finally buy it and realize, I don't need this, right? I don't want to sell you a $30,000 soundboard if you just need 4 knobs and 4 sliders, okay? I don't like seeing that in the sound booth where a church spends a lot of money on a soundboard and they didn't need all the doodads and gadgets. We need to be good stewards with our money and our time. So we're gonna figure all that stuff out. And I say figure it out because like we do have plans and projects and all these different things that can fit with you, but I want to make sure it's going to help your church. Otherwise, it's just wasted bandwidth. So we're going to walk through that process, get you consulted complimentarily, like I said, and then make sure it works for you. And then we'll go into all the icky business stuff.
That's great. Robert, you have anything else for Justin here?
It's fantastic. Thanks so much for your time. I mean, this was really, really helpful for me. So hope it's helpful for everybody else as well.
Yeah, so I want to say as we close this out, once again, thank you, Justin Nava, so much for spending some time with us today on the Small Church Podcast. This was incredibly informative, and I hope that for all of our listeners out there, if you would like to find out more, please, while you are listening to this podcast right now, stop whatever you're doing and Google, search in your podcast platform, the best known church show, subscribe, listen to Justin, become a follower of his. He has lots of great insight that will help you and your church. And if you would like to begin the journey of your church marketing and getting the word out about what you're doing and what Christ is doing in you and through your church, you can visit Nava Church Marketing. That's Nava churchmarketing.com. higherministries.com. If you would like more information about the Small Church Podcast, find us at higherministries.com. And again, I want to thank Justin Nava. I want to thank Robert Kell. And I want to thank you for listening. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you again next week on the Small Church Podcast.